Welcome to SEO Chess, and this is a series of videos where I'm gonna try to explain concepts of how games are won and lost. This game was played between Anish Giri and Alexander Donchenko. Giri was black, and what is interesting in this game is that he plays a slightly unorthodox idea, and the effect of this, I think, is that it threw Donchenko at least out of his usual prep, and he had to think a lot. The advantage of coming up with a concept like this is that your opponent is not prepared and maybe might get onto the right path anyway, but he's going to spend a lot of time, and that time can be used against him later on in the game, especially under critical circumstances. So the idea that Giri came up with, just from listening to him, doesn't seem like it's like truly about the specific move orders. It was more about the placement of the piece. So you see, quite early in the game, after knight c6, Giri played this move, knight to d8. Now, to put this into context, normally we advise players that you shouldn't, number one, place your knight at the edge of the board, d8 or a5 or h5, it doesn't matter where, because they are less effective away from the center. That's the first one. The second thing is it's a backward move. It's in the opening, you're moving the same piece a couple of times. There's a lot of things that are going against this idea of playing the knight to d8. But if a grandmaster does this, it means that they've thought about circumstances where this knight can later be activated with benefit, or at least even if it reaches equality. The idea is that the knight is not stuck necessarily on d8. So his idea is that either the knight is going to become active through f7, which is a typical square in the King's Indian setups, where you push f5 and then the knight maybe comes into the game that way. Another way the knight could become active is through b7, maybe after b6, knight b7 to c5. It's a possibility. Or as in the game, where after e5, white takes on e6 and the knight becomes active that way. So as you can see, there are multiple ways in which the knight could become active. And after a set of moves, and as you can see, he had this option of going to b7 to c5, but then by playing e5 and so on, he created another opportunity where the knight became active. Now, we could say maybe white has navigated the complexities of the knight having gone here very well, and it's not bad though. But what was quickly becoming clear during the game was that Donchenko had to think a lot more than Giri had to, because this position was new to him, and for Giri it was something he had seen. And by move 30, Donchenko had 7 minutes, Giri had about 30 minutes. And after, before we reached this position, it's interesting actually. For me, during the game, I thought after b3, white could perhaps, or black could go for d takes c4, queen c4, bc4, and so on. And this pawn is isolated, but after looking at the position which can arise, I totally understand why Giri didn't go for this, because yes, there is isolated pawns on the queen side, but they are not easy to attack. Whereas b6 here for black is actually a target and can easily be attacked. And if not, it's going to advance to b5, which eliminates this weakness. So it's kind of pointless. You appreciate Giri's concept where he kept on the tension, and during critical moments, Donchenko found e4, which is correct. But he was supposed to, after a5, follow it up with knight to e3, putting more pressure on the knight, which he did not find. After a5, he played queen d3, and after c5, White finds himself in a difficult position where, let's say, he puts the knight on the rook on c4. After knight b4, he just gets a worse position where the king side is compromised and can easily be attacked. So the game in the position he took, he left the knight and counter-attacked, and after an exchange of pawns, knight b4, we realize that he can't take on d4 because of knight to c2, attacking the rook and the queen at the same time. Queen b5, rook here. The vulnerability of the king now actually tells. King goes back, f4, and Giri at the decisive attack. Okay, so what can we learn from this game is that if you do find esoteric ideas where something might seem a little bit off, as in this game when Giri had to put his knight on d8, they could be very useful, not necessarily for their value as a move, but for the fact that your opponent might end up using a lot of time to understand what's happening in the position, and you can use that time pressure to pressure him later on in the game. I hope this is useful to you and you can use it in your own games. I'll see you later in another video.